Hey guys, welcome to today's Vehicle Visionary. Today I'm at Holmes Honda here in Shreveport, Louisiana, and this is the 2021 Honda Passport Touring. And I realize a lot of you have asked me to feature lower trim levels of the vehicles that I review, and I promise we're going to do more of that. I also received a request to take a look at this touring trim level of the Passport. Let's talk a little bit about the history of the Passport that dates back to 1993, when the Passport was originally built based on a partnership between Isuzu and Honda, and that went about until 2002 when the partnership ended and the Passport took a hiatus up until 2018 when it was brought back. That hiatus came about because it was replaced by the Honda Pilot, which of course the two are very closely related. Today I've got a video featuring some of the differences between the two, which there's not necessarily a lot. This is a two-row mid-size SUV and obviously one of Honda's popular sellers. Reliable, has a smooth ride, plenty of horsepower under the hood with this particular model. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but let's talk about what's new for 2021 if you plan to purchase a Passport. Before we talk about what's new, in case you're not sure what trim level you want of the Passport, if you're going to review a particular trim level, tell me down in the comments and I will list on the screen all of the trim levels and their base prices so you know, well, where they basically begin. As far as 2021 goes, while there are no exterior changes or cosmetic changes, what you will find are two very solid changes. An 8-inch touchscreen available across all trim levels, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto also now standard on all trim levels. Obviously, one of the main things people ask about in this day and age, safety features. I will list a partial list of those features on the screen. Honda Sensing obviously being part of that. If you want to see a full list of all of the features so I don't give you too much to take in this video, there's a link down in the description of the video to the Holmes Honda website. You can even purchase this very Passport. If you do, tell the salesman that you used that Tom from Vehicle Visionary sent you to the dealership. As far as the exterior goes, of course, I listed the exterior color and interior colors on the screen earlier. You've got LED headlights, LED daytime running lights, LED tail lights, and of course you're going to have the blinkers down here on the lower portion of the bumper. Also, fog lights down there, so visibility is definitely not going to be a problem when you're driving down the road in the dark. And here under the hood, the 3.5 liter V6, it's going to definitely do a good job of getting you around town, even with a full load of cargo, full load of passengers. 280 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque. It's mated to a 9-speed automatic transmission. And there are two drive configurations available. You can opt for front-wheel drive or you can opt for all-wheel drive, depending on what your needs and or desires are. Gas mileage comes in at an estimated 20 miles per gallon city, 25 out on the highway, a combined total of 22. Tell me in the comments what your experience has been if you're a Passport owner as far as your gas mileage. When the black wheels became a popular seller on a lot of vehicles, as we know these days, it took a little while for that to grow on me, but now I find myself actually favoring on a lot of vehicles, including with the exterior color of this Passport, the black 20-inch wheels that are on this model. I think that looks better than chrome would. Everybody has their opinions. Tell me what you think and what you favor, or does it really matter? Of course, you're going to notice plenty of black trim here around the windows. You've got the lightly tinted front windows, more of a privacy glass style here in the rear. The black roof rails up here, of course, the heated power side view mirrors, turn signal indicator built in there, and of course you've got easy access to the interior as far as locking and unlocking via the button here on the door handle. And of course, even though this SUV isn't that high off the ground, it still has the side steps that make getting in and out a whole lot easier. I think once you get used to that, it's kind of hard not to just automatically step on that rail to get in and out, even though it's really not necessary, but I do like that addition. And to finish off the lines, at least on the upper portion, the roof of the Passport, is the rear roof spoiler right here. And that's not only for cosmetic looks, but also it's functional. It allows air to be channeled over the rear window, so when you're driving down the road, it keeps dirt and dust from being able to settle down on the window back here. But of course, obviously that's going to happen regardless when you're sitting still. But that's why you have a rear window wiper right here. Now, this is a hands-free power tailgate, and there are multiple ways to open that. You can use the remote. There's a button right down here. There's a button in the interior where you can use the hands-free function. And you'll notice that there's a sticker right here on the tailgate itself that gives you information on how to use that. A quick tip on that: once you're used to doing this, it's not a big deal, but the first time you do it, it might not react as quickly as you want it to. So here's what you need to do. Just make sure you just touch the area right there under the bumper. Notice that it didn't start opening immediately. So a lot of people, including myself in the past, this is how I know to tell you about this, would say, oh, it didn't work. And then you put your foot back under the bumper again and it reverses the process and the tailgate stays closed, and you start to wonder, well, is something wrong? Now, just go ahead and just touch that area of the bumper down there where the sensor is, step back, and you're good to go. Of course, if you have any trouble, you can refer to the instructions that are built right in with that sticker on the tailgate. And I'll list the numbers as far as cargo space goes. Of course, you can fold down these rear seats. You've got two buttons here on each side. In the rear cargo area, you can just push each button and it automatically drops the seats down. Now, you do have to manually put those back up, but at the price point that this model falls, that's a really nice feature to have. Of course, you do have a cargo mat back here to help keep the carpet good and clean. If you're hauling something that might get that carpet dirty back here, that's very helpful. And for those of you who don't like tire repair kits, well, no problem here, because there is a spare tire located underneath the floor. Also some storage here in the rear. So quite a few nice features. Also, if you need a little connectivity back here, there is a 12-volt power outlet on the driver's side, the rear cargo area. And if you're saying, yeah, I'd rather have a USB port, well, of course, you can always buy an adapter to stick into that 12-volt power outlet. Then you have a multitasker. In the back seat, here's what your rear seat passengers will find: a reasonable amount of room. As you can see, I still have some space to go above my head at 5'10". The passenger seat is pretty far back, so I'm not able to really extend my legs out very far, but obviously that's easy to fix. And there's a lot of creative storage spaces, little nooks and crannies all around, so definitely not a problem there. Got a couple of cup holders built into the upper portion of the door here, and of course some door bins down here. Seat pockets here, the map pockets on the rear of the seats. You can control the air conditioning back here, of course, and even though I'd like to see ventilated seats, probably more than heated seats, because of just where I live here in the Northwest Louisiana area, where it tends to be warm more often than it's cold. But if your passengers want to have warm butts, well, they can, because you have heated seats here in the rear, in addition to the controls for controlling the air conditioning and the fan speed. Also, you're going to find connectivity down here, a power outlet, and a couple of USB ports down there. And from the rear area here, of course, you have a good view of the sunroof. Now, that's a conventional size sunroof. We'll have to see what comes with the next generation when that comes of the Passport. Will we see a panoramic sunroof? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. But in the meantime, that is what you have. Not a bad thing. And one more thing here that you probably noticed, you also have the shade right here that can be used on both doors here in the rear if your rear seat passengers wish to use such a thing. Okay, let's get started with the real business end of the Passport here. I'm going to hit the push button start, and in case you were wondering, here's a quick look at the remote. No changes there, but just so you can see, it's a nice sturdy remote that's actually very well built. Some remotes, you hold them and they just feel cheap and flimsy. That is definitely not the case here with the remote for the Passport. And so basically, you have everything you would expect here. You've got seat memory for the driver's seat, two different settings for that, all the controls for the windows, and some of the safety features here. If you want to drive in econ mode, here to the left of the steering wheel, power windows and all that good stuff. As you can see, one touch right there for the driver's window, not only to lower it, but to bring it back up. And you'll also find the same thing for the passenger side. The rear are not one touch, but the front are, so a nice feature there. A very nice looking instrument cluster, and these are not areas where you've seen change, but one thing you'll notice as I'm showing this to you on the screen, if you look at the instrument cluster, just below that to the right, you're going to notice a couple of buttons down there. That is so you can change how bright the instrument cluster itself is. If it's too bright for you at night, you can dim that to whatever you so desire. A nice feature there. Of course, shifter paddles on the steering wheel, so if you want to drive a little sporty in sport mode, you can do that. And you do have multiple driving modes. You've got sport, snow. Of course, you can drive an Econ as well. Just depends on what your situation is and or desires. Steering wheel mounted controls, everything very easy to get to, of course. And like I said, you've got that 8-inch standard in all trim levels touchscreen, very easy to use, very easy to navigate. And I do like the fact that when you put the Passport into reverse with the rear view camera, you've got multiple views, you've got those trajectory lines to help you out. And I do like the fact that you have a very clear picture here with all angles. Dual zone climate control here in the front, of course, push button start. Also heated seats here for the driver and passenger. Again, would like to see ventilated seats. Just depends on where you are, I guess. If you live in an area where it doesn't get as hot as it does down here, especially during the summer, well, you might not worry about that so much, but not a big deal either way, just something that it would be nice to see. More connectivity here, another 12-volt power outlet and USB port, and that's not all you have. I'll show you where the others are located up here as well shortly. Of course, there's that push-button shifter, the drink holders next to that, everything pretty easy to use. The very last button there on that push-button shifter, the button to turn off the auto stop start feature. And you might say, well, why would I want to do that? To save your starter. And even though maybe there are some advantages to that as far as saving gas and all that stuff goes, you got to weigh the consequences there. What do you want? Do you want to save the gas, or do you want to save your starter? Because obviously if you ever have to replace that, well, it'll be a little bit more expensive. And just something to consider. Tell me about your feelings about the auto stop start feature down in the comments section, because I know, as always, there's going to be varied opinions on that. I'm curious to know what yours are. And here with the center console, of course, you've got the sliding, almost think of a garage door with the lid on this console here, because you slide that back and forth to open and close it, but a lot of space down there. I'd say a good 8 to 12 Vehicle Visionary t-shirts would fit in there if you fold those just right. Maybe you can get a couple of extras in there. Another USB port and another power outlet located down here, a 12-volt power outlet. So you've got a lot of connectivity options throughout the Passport in the front seat for your rear seat passengers, and like I showed you, even in the rear cargo area, you've got that 12-volt if you wish to take advantage of that. So what about the driving experience of the Passport? Let's hop out on the road and find out. Okay guys, we're gonna hop out on the road here for our test drive real quick. And one thing I gotta definitely say that gets high marks, at least for me, is the ride quality of the Passport. The ride is exceptionally smooth. And you know, you probably can't tell on the video right here, but this little stretch of road, even though the speed limit is pretty low through here at 30 miles an hour, this road will definitely test your shocks and suspension really well. And I'll tell you, that tells me a lot about how well this Passport rides. And I've reviewed a lot of Passports in the past, so the ride quality is definitely not an issue. And visibility, of course, is good, but yeah, it's an interesting thing to consider with the way that technology has advanced over the years, with the driver aids that you have with Honda Sensing and all the great safety features that come on this model. Even though you don't really have a bad blind spot or anything like that here, you still have the driving aids to help you out if you're having a hard time seeing around, or maybe there's a lot of traffic and a lot going on around you. Well, that's going to help keep the driver aware of what's going on. Definitely makes a big difference. The steering wheel itself, good and comfortable, nice and responsive, and it's not a sports car. It doesn't have a real sporty feel to it by any means, but it's not supposed to. But the good thing is that I do like the responsiveness of the vehicle. And hey, look at that car in front of us. They spent so much money on it that they couldn't afford the turn signal option. Oh, wait a second. That's kind of like saying squirrel. Kind of got distracted there. Anyway, there's your humor for the video. But as I get out onto the road here, you're not really accelerating too hard. The speed limit through here is 45 miles an hour, so not very high. But getting up to that was absolutely no problem. You might think 280 horsepower, I'd like to have more. And while I would agree with somebody that would say, yes, more than 280 horsepower would be a good thing, it's not bad. I don't have any concerns about how well this Passport accelerates, how well it gets down the road, especially if you have all-wheel drive. It's definitely going to get down the road even better because you just multiply the traction going to the ground. But it's not a problem if you need to accelerate around a slower moving vehicle, say on a 2-lane road, or you're merging into fast-moving traffic on an interstate. It's not going to be a problem. And like I said, multiple driving modes. If you're one of those people who maybe lives locally here in the Northwest Louisiana area or somewhere nearby, and back in February of 2021, obviously we had quite the experience with 8 or so inches of snow that eventually turned to solid ice. And I heard a lot of people say, I will never buy a vehicle again that is not all-wheel drive. And yeah, this Passport would have definitely had no problem getting around and all of that because, well, depending on if it's all-wheel drive or not. Obviously, like I said earlier, you have the option of all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. So depending on what you have, well, that's going to make a difference. But the all-wheel drive models would definitely be a great daily driver, especially in situations like that. If you live somewhere where that happens all the time, then yeah, this would really be good. And it does have hill start assist. So if maybe you live in a place that's has a lot of mountains, Colorado or whatever the case may be, and you have a steep driveway, for example, maybe it's wet or icy or whatever the case is, well, you've got that hill start assist to help out. Just a lot of great features here with all the different functionality, everything going on here. I'm very impressed with what Honda's done here, and even though the Passport hasn't received any major updates for 2021, I'm curious to see what does come when a refresh makes its way to the Passport. And for those of you who stuck around to this point in the video, here's a little bonus footage for you about the turning radius of the Passport. How good is it? Well, as you can probably see, I hope you can see this on the screen real well, the turning radius is actually pretty impressive. I've got the front wheels turned all the way, but I tell you what, no problem at all making a pretty tight circle.